So in the part 2 of this particular example, I have shown you how we can have a sequence of operations performed to get two container instances running, and of course also build before running. Now, and I said this whole thing can be systematized by using Docker Compose. First thing what I would suggest is close Visual Studio and now go to the folder where we have the project created, the solution created, the parent directory of both the web application. And here we would like to open Visual Studio Code. So just press code dot. So now the parent directory is going to be the folder under which I would like to now create Docker Compose file. So here in the root, I would like to add Docker Compose. .yml. That's important. Now in Docker Compose.yml, we are now supposed to provide configuration for both web app as well as web API. So let's begin writing this. So first on top we provide version colon 3.4. Followed by that we want to mention services colon press tab. Under services we have two services. One is Hello Web App and the other is EMP Web API. Mind you, you can give any name as per your requirement. It's your choice. But I prefer giving these names because they are project names. But you can just give web and API. Anything is okay there. Hello Web App uses the image which is Sandeep Soni / Hello Web App, and EMP uses the image Sandeep Soni / EMP Web API. This I want to run on port number 8080. So I give here ports colon hyphen 8080 map to port number 80. Give spaces here. After colon space is required. So all spaces matters a lot. Like that, I want this to run on port 8081. Now the main point comes. How am I going to provide the name of the host? Okay, before that we have to give build. Under build we should give context. Now context is supposed to be the current. But where is Docker file? Now we have to mention Docker file. It's actually in subdirectory. So hello web app / Docker file. Like that, in this case also we should give build. Tab is very important. Press tab. Context dot and Docker file is EMP Web API / the Docker file. All good. But what is most important? While executing, we were able to give the environmental variables. So how can we give the environmental variables from here to there? So I want to actually provide environmental variables for Hello Web App. So under Hello Web App, we can actually create a new section that is environment. And environment is a collection of multiple key value pairs. So we should again use -sign hyphen. We want the first environment variable service host is equal to, now what should be the value of this service host? Ideally speaking, we are actually supposed to specify the IP address of this. But Docker Compose gives you the advantage where even the container name can be mentioned. I repeat, name of the container also can be mentioned. So earlier also, we can probably make a small change here. I can give here Docker run and give some name, let's say EMP web API, and that name I can actually use here. Even this is fine because Docker, I'm going to explain to you more about this in networking, but using container name also, one container can identify another container. Of course, you can use the IP address, but name is sufficient. The container name which is provided is sufficient. If you don't give this name, automatically it will give some other name. That's why it is recommended to give this particular fixed name. So here now, this is the name of the container which is going to get created. So that name I would want to use it for the host. And of course, I will keep the service port as 80. And one more important thing which I want to do here is I want to ensure that this container gets created only after this container gets created. So here I would like to add now one more section, that is EMP web API. No, here it should be depends on, and this should be EMP web API. That's it. So hello web app is one service instance, EMP web app is another service instance. Implies there are two containers going to get created, and the containers are going to be built from the respective Docker files. The images which are created are so and so, and when these images are created, the same are used for execution by instantiating the container instances on this port number. This should be obviously different. Here it is 80, so here it should be 80, 81. They cannot be same because that is the host port number, host operating system port number. And then hello web app is supposed to use the environmental variables, and these environmental variables are going to refer through code to this particular API. So now it's time to execute Docker Compose up. So yes, we can go to the terminal and here Docker Compose up, and hopefully everything is right and we should not get any error. Let's confirm it. Encountered an error. Cannot start. Failed to create endpoint multi-container on network. The object already exists. Okay, we already have few containers that we have to first destroy. So Docker PS, the old instances are running. So Docker RM C597 RM is not working because they are not stopped yet. Let us stop them first. Once stopped, you can of course remove them. And now check up. Docker PS minus A should be empty. Oh, we still have one. Let's remove this also. Docker RM3C. Docker PS minus A should be blank. So no containers running. Now execute Docker Compose up. Remember, I'm in the same directory where I have Docker compose.yml file. So ignore this warning about swarm. We are not doing that topic now. creating multi-container. All the images were already there. That's why it did not build any image. And I told you earlier in the previous topic, previous session, if you want to build the image explicitly, you can always do that by using hyphen build option along with Docker Compose up. Anyways, now it's time to run this web app. Web app is listening on port number 8081. So go here, localhost 8081, home, get employees, press enter, and everything should be fine. Oh, error. What is the error? You can actually see the error message in the console window. And the error we can easily figure out from here. Oh, my mistake, sorry. I did not give hyphen. Oh, yes. The second. So, two environmental variables. So, hyphen both should be given. So, save it. Break this. First execute docker compose down. So it deletes all of them. And let's again execute docker compose up. Yes, all done. Come back, refresh this page. Hopefully it should work this time. We can see the output. Yep, everything is successful. URL has come correct. And you see this time it is a container name which is used. So I did not worry about the IP address which was given to that container. I did not do inspect. I just used the name of the container. And that is how we are able to have two applications launched just by executing one command, that is docker compose up. And when you're done, you can undo all the containers, you can delete everything just by using docker compose down. So it is that simple. Stop here everything and execute docker compose down. So we have seen in this, I've actually clubbed my two examples of the handout. I've also included here how we can make use of the environmental variables and the configuration file. So yes, we have done this. We have taken the URL and the value of the URL is being set in the host web app. Docker compose up with build option. So what is important is right now I'm setting the value of the environmental variables through compose file. But remember, we can always do that using the shell also, or using an environmental file also, or a docker also, or if the variable is not defined. That means what? First it will check if the docker compose file is providing the values. If the docker compose file is providing, well and good. If not, it will take it from the shell, that is your operating system shell, it will take it from the environmental variables. If not, it will try to take from the environmental file. How to mention environmental file? Here it is. You can actually create a file in the same folder by name .env. That's it, only .env. Only the file name. We don't need any actual name, just the extension .env. And in that you can provide the key value pairs. One by one, it's a text file, and that file name we can mention it. We don't even have to mention the file name. Docker compose will automatically pick up this compose file along with this and it will use that. And I told you earlier, Docker compose gives you the ability to use variables. So like this, you can put dollar and the environmental variable name within the YML file. in the YML file, if you have a variable by name tag, you can put the value of it with dollar preceded. That's possible. So Docker Compose gives you the ability to even put variables. And of course, if the variable is not defined in any of these locations, the runtime is going to treat that as variable is not defined. We are going to get null for it. So I believe this gives you a complete picture of how Docker Compose can ease the job of creating a complete environment for creation of for building and instantiating containers.